All right. So it's okay if you don't understand this scripture because it didn't make sense to me either when I first read it. I feel like it doesn't matter if you are a Christian or not. If you read these words in your Bible, it doesn't really match up with what you've heard Jesus to be. He's supposed to be a kind person, he's supposed to be a gentle person. He's not supposed to not answer you, and he's definitely not supposed to call you a dog. So it's okay if this doesn't make sense to you. It didn't make sense to me either, but then I went and did a bunch of research. And here I am to tell you what I discovered. So first thing we gotta do is we gotta name this woman. We got to name her because I want to give her personality and I want to give her agency. So here are a list of popular baby names from 1917 to make sure we don't name her accidentally after somebody we know. What shall we name her? Somebody yell something out.
Ethel.
Agnes? I heard Agnes. All right. Her name is now Agnes. Does anybody know anybody named Agnes?
Yes.
Oh no! Do we need a second one?
It's all right.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Don't tell her.
Trigger alert.
She actually turns out to be an awesome person, so. Okay. Our Canaanite woman is now named Agnes. So let's center ourselves in the narrative and figure out what was happening right before this story, because it's always important to make sure we understand what was going on before, because that gives us context into what the story is now. So Matthew 15 finds Jesus in a squabble with the Pharisees, and we are in Jesus' hometown of Galilee. And the Pharisees are the religious rulers of the day, and they have come down from Jerusalem down to Galilee to check out Jesus because they kind of have been hearing about him, and they've been hearing that he's been getting a lot of press. And the Pharisees are the religious rulers, and they kind of like, what's going on? So they have come down to check him out, and they are arguing about hand washing. Seriously, so Matthew 15:2. Why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? They don't wash their hands before they eat. Admittedly, that's unhygienic, but that's really what the Pharisees are trying to do here, is they are trying to discredit Jesus. He's getting too popular. The Pharisees are looking for any little tiny detail that they can jump on and tell the crowd, hey, Jesus is doing this wrong, we are doing this right, therefore you should follow us and not him. But the joke is on the Pharisees, because those specific hand-washing laws aren't actually in the original law of Moses. They were added generations ago to the law of Moses by the Pharisees, and now are accepted as common practice. So Jesus points this out and says it's not about what goes into your mouth, potentially dirty fingers, which it's about what comes out of your mouth, as in your words, which reflect your heart and your thoughts and your character. So the Pharisees get pissed off, and they're kind of elbowing Jesus. Or the Pharisees are not elbowing Jesus, the disciples are elbowing Jesus. The disciples are elbowing Jesus, and they're saying the Pharisees are getting pissed off. And Jesus throws a parable at them about a plant being pulled up by the roots, and the blind leading the blind, and the disciples are like, I still don't understand what you're saying. So Jesus doubles back down and said, what goes into your mouth doesn't matter because you poop it out. I am not lying. This is in Matthew 15, 17 through 20. It's weird. It happened. Okay, that's what happened previously. Let's get to today's text. Matthew 15:21. Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. Now, Tyre and Sidon are about 39 miles away from Galilee. So we are here at Musicians Institute. And if we jump on Highland and go to the 101, and then take the 101 to the 170, and then to the 5, 39 miles away from here is, well, nothing. But 33 miles away from here is Castaic Middle School. So remember our last day at Pickwick Gardens when Joseph was talking about the concept of sanctified imagination? It's a thing. It's not limited to the womanist midrash. Sanctified imagination is something that a lot of people use when they're talking about Bible stuff. So it's a fancy way of saying, if this was a movie, I think it would go like this. So I am using my sanctified imagination. Jesus and the disciples are heading to the region Tyre and Sidon, aka Castaic Middle School, home of the Cougars. And they're camping out on the football field. So the interesting thing about Tyre and Sidon is that they are Gentile territory. Gentile, meaning not Jewish. Jesus has left his hometown of Galilee, home base, friendly people, and he's kind of going into not friendly territory because the Jews and the Gentiles really don't like each other. So I'm using my sanctified imagination saying that based on what has just previously happened with the whole hand-washing scrabble with the Pharisees, Jesus might be tired, annoyed, maybe kind of irked, because that might explain what happens next when Agnes gets on the scene. So let's talk about Agnes. And Agnes, this story is not the only time that she is talked about in the Gospels. We're here in Matthew 15. She's also mentioned in Mark 7. And it's there that Mark describes her as a Syro-Phoenician, meaning she came from the region of Phoenicia. That means that Agnes was most likely rich, because everybody that lived in Phoenicia were seafarers and traders. They had the goods, so they had the money. Number two, Agnes did not worship the Hebrew God because she is a Gentile. Who did she worship? Well, she worshiped this pagan god, and there are various ways to pronounce this name, so I'm going to just run through them all. It can either be called Baal, Baal, or Baal. And I'm from the South, so I'm going to say Baal, y'all. Thank you. Who is Baal? He is a pagan god. He is a fertility god. He is in charge of baby making. He is in charge of crops. He's in charge of the weather, which rains on the crops and makes them grow. So Agnes is most likely rich. She doesn't worship the Hebrew God, but most importantly, she is desperate. Why? Let's go to the text. Matthew 15:22. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly." You guys, it's New Testament demons again. You know I love me some New Testament demons. They make the Bible super interesting. And again, I don't get to talk about them because that's actually not what the story is about. Someday I'm going to get to give a sermon about New Testament demons. Not today. Anyways, so based on my sanctified imagination and the text and research, I am thinking Agnes must have heard about Jesus. Like, maybe the Castaic middle school PTA moms are talking about that strange guy down in Galilee who's been healing people and is getting a lot of attention, and now he's camping out on the football field with his gang. But Agnes is not only desperate, she is desperate and she has faith. She has been probably praying to Baal to heal her daughter, and it hasn't worked. So let's break her desperation down in the text. Matthew 15:22. Lord, Son of David. Stop. We have a tendency just to kind of run over that sentence. Lord, Son of David, yeah. I know who the Lord, Son of David, yeah, that's Jesus. Okay, but here's what's really going on. By saying that Jesus is the Son of David, Agnes is publicly saying that she believes that Jesus is the Messiah. This is a gal who has come from the land of Baal believers. She is publicly renouncing her faith in that God. She is going against everything. Her family, her friends, the PTA moms, everybody on this football field, she's saying, yeah, don't believe that anymore. This guy is the Messiah. His God is my God. Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. Again, we say this all the time, have mercy. It almost like it doesn't have any meaning anymore because we just run over it in the text. Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. Agnes is humble. She knows that she's got no right to approach Jesus. She's a Gentile. He's a Jew. They don't worship the same God. 3 chapters ago in Matthew 12, Jesus healed blind guys, mute guys, one guy with a gnarly hand that can now use it. He's done miracles. Agnes has organized bake sales for the middle school choir. It's not the same thing. She has elevated him. She knows that he is better than her. And maybe she's thinking there's no way that he would listen to her. But Agnes is desperate. She has faith that Jesus can heal her daughter. And she has faith. She has faith. This has to be rewarded, right? Here's what Jesus does. Matthew 15:23. Jesus did not answer a word. Why? Why is Jesus saying nothing? Being kind of a jackass. What do you do? Question for the room. What do you do when God is silent? When you are desperate and you are trying so damn hard to get an answer from God, you are praying, nothing. You are screaming, nothing. You are crying, nothing. Then you go back to apologize to God through prayer for screaming. And you try again. Please, God, give me an answer. Please, God, move. Nothing. So what do you do when God is silent? Because Jesus is silent here. Agnes is saying, I acknowledge you as the Messiah. I just renounced my God. I know you can heal my demon-possessed daughter. And Jesus says nothing. Let's keep going, Matthew 15:23. So his disciples come to him and urged him, send her away, for she keeps crying out after us. Oh, fantastic. So not only is Jesus being a jackass, but the disciples are being jackasses. Like if this was a movie, I'm using my sanctified imagination and I'm seeing the disciples kind of pull Jesus over to the side and they're having their own little sidebar, jackassery. But here is what's really happening. Jesus is testing everybody's faith by not answering. He is testing Agnes. He's testing Agnes. Do you really believe that I can heal your daughter? Are you sure that you're not just hedging your bets and praying to every single God out there in the hopes that one of them's going to come through for you? And Jesus is testing the disciples. What are you going to do if I don't tell you what to do? Do you know, disciples, that you're supposed to show compassion and humility and empathy if I don't tell you what to do? Have you learned anything from following me? So for us, in the absence of an immediate answer, what do you do? Are you still going to have faith? Are you maybe thinking about walking away? You think maybe God's busy? Doesn't have time for your problems? Maybe he doesn't care because I'm not hearing anything from him. Well, finally, Jesus says something in Matthew 15:24. He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. Okay, lost sheep of Israel equals the Jews. Jesus is saying he was only sent to the Jews. Again, Jesus is testing everybody in front of him. How much do you really believe? If the answer is silence, and you keep at it. If the answer is, you're not a lost sheep of Israel, are you going to leave? Are you going to stay? What do you do when God's not answering? So Agnes has clearly overheard the disciples and Jesus, and I'm using sanctified imagination. She is running over there and busting into the middle of their sidebar. Matthew 15:25. The woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me, she said. Okay, question for the room. What language is the New Testament written in? What? Greek? Right. Do you know what Lord help me in Greek is? It is Kyrie eleison. Does that ring any bells with any of my 80s music fans? Do we have any Mr. fans in the room? Kyrie eleison, down the road that I must travel. Kyrie, okay, so basically Agnes is coming over and is singing Mr. to Jesus. She is kneeling before Jesus. In Game of Thrones terms, she is bending the knee to Jesus, acknowledging him as Lord. Come on, Jesus. You gotta heal her daughter now, right? Matthew 15:26. He replied, it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Okay. Research and scholarship explain it like this. Jews were the ones that God made the covenant with, not the Gentiles. So Israelites are in the first position, and Gentiles are in the second position. That doesn't mean you should call Agnes a dog, Jesus, but it is true that the Jews would call Gentiles dogs as a derogatory term, but that is only if you're reading things on the surface here. because how many words do we have for dogs today? Somebody start yelling out, hey Lex, what is a synonym for dog?
Mutt.
Mutt, okay. Lex?
I can't say it here.
Dumb as you are.
Mongrel.
The B word.
The B word. Mutt, the B word. What else?
Upper.
Pupper, exactly. Pupper, mongrel, cur. We have a lot of names for dogs, right? Pooch, puppy, hound. In biblical times, there were 2 words for dogs. Quan. That is street dog. Those things are rabid. They are not allowed in the house. Don't pet them. They will bite you. You will die of rabies. But the word that Jesus is using here is kunaria. And that means it's a cute little puppy dog, like a cute little pupper wuppers. So this line, translated into modern day terms, is I'm here to be the bread for the Jews, not for the cute little pupper wuppers. It is a clue. It is a clue that Jesus is dropping to Agnes. And maybe this is a test. And is she going to persist? There are many, many scholars out there who are using their sanctified imaginations to say that Jesus might have been smiling. There might have been a twinkle in his eye. Something hinting that, maybe I might be joking. Okay, so have you guys ever been out in public and you see a guy and he's making a giant romantic declaration to his girlfriend, like he's bought a giant bouquet of roses or he's got a band or something like that, and he's doing it all in public, and her response is, you big dummy. Oh, I hate you so much. Right? So her words, if we just read them on a page, would seem to indicate that she doesn't like him, but her tone is completely the opposite. That's what scholars think is happening here, that Jesus' tone is enough to give Agnes the yardage she needs to keep coming. But here's the other thing. Jesus isn't saying no. He's calling her a cute little pupper wuppers, but he's not saying no. And Agnes picks up on the fact that Jesus is calling her a cute little pupper wuppers, because check out her response. Matthew 15:27. Yes, it is, Lord, she said. Even the dogs, they eat crumbs that fall from their master's table. Agnes is saying, yeah, call me a cute little pupper wuppers if you want, because yeah, I'm a Gentile, and maybe I don't deserve the full loaf of bread, but the crumbs are going to be enough, because I believe that you are the bread, and my faith in you and your crumbs, that's enough. So what happens? Matthew 15:28. Then Jesus said to her, woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. And her daughter is healed at that moment. Agnes wins. Her faith wins. Disciples are still jackasses, but Agnes wins. And Mark 7:30 gives us our happy ending. When the woman went home, she found the child lying in bed and the demon gone. So Agnes is not a Jew. And she still believed. And her faith is rewarded. So, what can we learn from this messed up story? What can we learn about Agnes's desperation? The thing about desperation is that, man, you feel it, right? It's the only thing that you can feel. There are people in this room today who have had children in the NICU, and they would have done anything. They were desperate for that child to be healed and to get out. Desperation blots out everything. It blots out logic. It blots out rational thought. And maybe you've not had a kid in the NICU, but you've been desperate, right? I can list a whole bunch of scenarios. I got fired. I can't make rent. I'm getting kicked out of my apartment. I'm battling bureaucratic nonsense and I am losing. My loved one is dying. My loved one left me. Now I'm alone. I'm arguing with people I don't agree with and we can't see eye to eye, and I am desperate for an answer, for a solution. I am desperate to know how to handle this situation. I can say that God is there in your desperation, You're going to tell me to go kick rocks. Because that's what I'd do if you told me that. God is with you. Yeah, I know God is with me. The question has never been about God's location. I know where God is. I need him to do something. The best metaphor that I can come up with, and I would love to hear your metaphors, because I'm not sure that this one works, but let me try. It's like you're in a boxing ring, and you're getting punched to death, and your opponent is life. And life is just beating you up. And God is there. God is with you in the ring. He's the referee. And you are just getting beat and just punch after punch after punch. And you're looking at God and you're like, hey, you want to step in and stop this? Do you want to do something? And if he doesn't do anything, do you think this is fair? Do you think that, you're the referee? If life keeps beating me up, does that mean you think it's okay? Are you going to stop me from getting punched? Because if you're not, I'm going to get out of the ring. Agnes was in the ring. The Castaic Middle School PTA is talking about her and her demon-possessed daughter. Everybody had to have known that her daughter, there was something wrong with her. That kind of stuff tends to get out. And I bet that they were probably whispering to themselves, what did Agnes do to deserve this? Because this kind of stuff doesn't happen to good people. But Agnes stayed in the ring. And she kept asking Jesus for help. She didn't stop. Not when he didn't answer. Not when he called her a cute little papa whoppers. She didn't get out of the ring. The question for us all is, can we stay in the ring? Desperation is fueled by adrenaline, and adrenaline is energy. You can convert that energy into strength. There is strength in desperation. Can you use that strength to stay in the ring? The theme of our study of the book of Matthew is, who are we in the kingdom of God? We are Agnes. We are Agnes. We are desperate people. We are messed up. We are broken. We are scared. We don't know what's coming next. We may not even be here next year. I don't know about you, but I want to be here next year, and I am desperate for some kind of stability. We don't know what to do, but because we believe in God, we stay. We stay in the ring. We have faith that God is going to move. It's desperate faith, but it's still faith, and it still counts. That's what I got. Does anybody have any comments or commentary? Does anybody else have a better metaphor than my boxing ring one? Because I'm not convinced that it works.
It works great.
Well, okay, but that doesn't really form a discussion here, does it? Thank you. Yes, Aaron Brown.
So the thing that's like coming up for me is sometimes it's easier to be that person to have faith for someone else. So when she's having that faith for her daughter, like that like mother like instinct, and when you're hurting for yourself, how do you have that same faith?
Yeah, so everybody at home, Erin Brown Thomas just had a really great comment where she says sometimes it's easier to have faith in someone else for someone else than it is to have faith for yourself in your own problems. It's easier to go try to find a solution for someone else's problems than to have faith that God is going to actually solve your problems. Yeah, exactly. Because so many times I'm like, God's clearly not answering my question because he is helping everybody in Africa. That's an easy way to justify it. It's not right, but it's certainly what I'm thinking. But yeah, it's definitely easier to ask for things for other people, for sure. Mhm. I was going to call on people, but I don't think so. Yes.
I feel like if I didn't know the story, like you replaced Jesus with another name and was like a teacher who was teaching something and like did this behavior, I'd be like, that feels very manipulative.
Interesting.
But I know it's Jesus, so of course I trust that he has a reason. Everything you said makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
like testing people, like, it makes sense knowing that. But not knowing that, it just seems very like a mind game, and that doesn't seem like something I want to support.
I totally agree. So the comment is that it does, if it was anybody else other than Jesus, we would think that this is very manipulative behavior and not nice. Not nice at all. And it is weird that it is Jesus doing it. And I haven't quite rationalized, well, because I'm not sure that he does this to anybody else. But it is interesting, right? Like, I remember hearing in church, and I'm not sure if this is right, I remember hearing in church that Jesus never healed a person the same way twice. He may have healed blind people, but he didn't heal them the same way twice. And this might be that he is engaging with people in different ways. Why he has chosen to engage this way with Agnes, is it because she's not just a Gentile, but she's from Phoenicia, she believes in Baal or whatever, and maybe he feels like he needs to test her faith harder, but I'm not sure I like that theory either. But yeah, I think that's interesting, right? Like, Jesus does actually, I'm gonna throw it to the room. Chris Riley, I know you're smarter than me. Does Jesus test other people's faith? He tests the disciples' faith all the time, right? Because he's in the boat, in the walking on water, right?
Well, he does. Yeah, I mean, he does the ghost thing, walking on the water. He's got to know that he's going to terrify them. He does the thing with Abraham and Isaac, which is a misdirect. That's what I was thinking of when I was thinking of any kind of comparison with the story. So what I'm wondering is really, is God asking the question, who do you think I am? Do you think I'm someone who calls you a God? And this woman says, yeah, I don't buy that for a minute. Abraham trusts, I mean, that's such a weird story. Abraham trusts the character of God, that God is good. Even though that story doesn't make sense even now, knowing the twist ending. Yeah, I was interested in what you said about, the question was never God's location. I think the question is God's character. So we believe God's able, we believe God's here. Is God good? And that maybe is the real question. That he responds and says, wow, you've got great faith. Not so much you have a large quantity of faith, but it was, I don't believe you are a racist, dismissing me. And that's what Jesus responds to.
Yeah, so the comment is that it's more about God and who do you believe God to be. And it's not about the quantity of your faith, which is true, because faith cannot be quantified. But just the fact that you have faith. I think I summarized it a little too blithely there.
No, I also don't disagree with your assessment that I might be smarter than you. I don't believe that.
No, it's true. Yes, Ross. Oh, sorry.
I think it's interesting that there's a third actor. That we're getting when we see like we have the disciples.
Yeah.
He may be like representing what he's
gosh, that's amazing. So Ross's comment is that it's possible that Jesus is representing the disciples and what they are supposed to do, and maybe representing their role. Is that?
Yeah, or like their prejudice.
Or their prejudice, yeah. Like basically Jesus might be, well, if I'm going to pretend I'm the disciples, and I'm going to say nothing because the disciples are going to say nothing. I love that. Yeah. No, I like it. All thoughts are welcome here. This is the whole idea. Joseph Rowan in the back.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've seen it before. It's like Jesus used. I didn't know the thing about the way God was used as like a puppy dog, but I've read that as, these are things that they might have been whispering. Jesus says, "No, I don't keep it." The things that he says out loud, it's almost a way of shaming the disciples around him, saying, "You said you whispered this to me. Let me say it to this woman in her face and see how that makes her feel."
So yeah. No.
And then he goes, and then he shames them by saying, "You have great faith. So you were saying all these things to me. Now look how this is a real human being I'm interacting with. How do you think that makes her feel?" And actually, she has more faith than you guys have.
Yeah, so piggybacking off of the idea that Jesus is representing the disciples and basically saying what the disciples might have been thinking. It's like, oh, you think this woman is a dog? I will call her a dog to her face. Is that what you're thinking? Yes.
Maybe because Jesus, by this time, a lot was known about him. He was kind of famous and stuff. Maybe he didn't want people to catch on that he was perfect. Maybe he's literally acting, but he has a flaw. Maybe he's just acting.
Maybe Jesus is acting like maybe he has flaws. That's cool.
Maybe he's perfect, but he didn't want the world to know that he's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. There were definitely times where he's like, my ministry is not supposed to begin yet. It's like, I've healed you, don't tell anybody else. And then they run and tell everybody. Let's do I see your hand so far in the back.
From your research,
From my
is
research.
this the first healing of a Gentile?
That is an excellent question. I am chagrined to say that I did not research that question. I should have. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go home tonight and I'm going to look it up. And then I'm going to email you. How's that? Does anybody else know? I'm not going to look at Chris Riley. He says he's not smart.
Centurion's son before or after?
The centurion's son. Interesting. Okay, so I think, again, not sure which gospel. There's the dead girl and the sick woman, and I want to say the centurion's son might be in there too.
Woman as well.
Woman at the well is, gosh, where is she in the narrative? And now, of course, I have to go pick up my chronological Bible that organizes everything chronologically. Did I hear her coming in the back? This is all fascinating. Yes, Lee.
A couple things that I thought I loved your shedding light on. I think when you talked about what the word was in Greek for dog and the choices that there were, because we're so often at the mercy of translators in English,
Yes.
and we don't have the insight as to what the actual speakers were saying, which is what a translator said, and so then we interpret it. And just the fact that you're talking about the inflection possibilities, because in Hollywood we know an actor can get a script, and an actress auditions, and here I've got my words in front of me, and this actress gives this interpretation, another actress reads the same scene a completely different way and has an insight into what the writer was saying that the other first one didn't have. So I think the more that we know God and know his personality, I think that can help us interpret the script a little more accurately, because if we don't have any idea, we just, he kind of sounds mean, I don't like that guy.
Yeah, if we understand and know the nature and the character of God, we can understand tone better. Like the more I research, and if I'm assigned a topic, or actually I picked this one, but the more that I have to research to give talks to you all, the more that I'm thinking we should really, with every Sunday, with every scripture, we really need to dive in so much more and really understand what these words are. it's more than just what is on the page. We have to go back. We have to research what it says in the Greek, or if we're in the Old Testament, what it says in the Hebrew. We have to look at it because there's so much more going on. There's so much more going on. So yeah. Yes, Marie, you're going to be our last question.
Just kind of playing off of that, like, yeah, we hear and interpret things different, but also God speaks to us differently. So
Yes.
It makes me wonder, was she kind of like playful, sarcastic, but also like doesn't give up, and so he knew he could engage with her that way, and people who kind of interact that way can see themselves in that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So if God speaks to us in different ways, we speak to God in different ways, and maybe, like, I speak to God all the time in a very, very specific way, and I'm sure nobody else speaks to him the same way that I do. But you don't speak to God the same way I do. I don't speak to God the same way you do. And I am convinced there's no wrong way to speak to God. And then he's going to react off of that, and Jesus was reacting off of that as well. I think that's great. Cesar, you're our last comment.
Yeah. It seems like Jesus was being rude for not answering to Agnes. But I don't think it was rude. I think when I analyze the event, of what it meant to Jesus to me was more like kind of acting. But it was more like leading to the outcome that he already knew because he is God.
Yeah.
Just like he knew he was going to die on the cross and raise from the dead. So he was leading to teach us a lesson, to teach everybody that God was seeing to me.
Yeah.
His lead was the act order to get to that point where he said,
Yeah.
have enough for it.
So Jesus is leading Agnes to the
Demonstrate that, there's
foregone conclusion. Yeah, exactly. He's demonstrating is it the Socratic method, where I'm not going to just tell you the answer. I am going to kind of ask you questions so that you can get there on your own. Yeah.
Yes, but he was not, even though he said I was sent to the Israelites,
Mm-hmm.
but he was actually bringing his goodness to the as well.
Yeah.
And he was teaching the disciples that there's going to be
There's going to be more. He's teaching everybody that there's going to be more than just the Israelites who are going to get saved here. It's going to be for all of us.
that's what
No, I agree, and thank God for that, right? Because we all get saved now.
because the Gentiles wanted to no, for not people, for just for us.
Right, yeah.
Jesus was going along, boom, here it is.
Boom, here it is. Here I am. Okay, great. Thank you, guys. I know that this is always slightly uncomfortable to try and do a group discussion. I really hope that we do more of them, because I really like everybody participating. But okay, so now Lori Deason is going to come up. She's going to slay us with her rendition of Broken Wings. I can't believe none of you know Mr. Honestly, that saddens me. It's okay.